If you love animated content that breaks down book summaries and dives into fascinating topics, we'd love your support. Creating these videos takes a lot of time and effort, and by subscribing, you help us continue bringing you this valuable content consistently. Your support means the world to us. Hit that subscribe button and join us on this exciting journey. And now, let's continue with the video. Tiny Habits. Chapter 1. Tiny is powerful. Take a moment to think about your life. Are there any changes you want to make? Maybe you want to start waking up earlier, or you want to eat a little healthier, or you want to make a career change and start your own business. We all have positive changes we want to make, no matter how big or how small. And yet, so many of us struggle. There seems to be an elusive gap between the results we want and our actions. When we fail, we often blame ourselves. This makes us resent change and lowers our self-worth. A vicious cycle is born. But according to psychologist BJ Fogg, this failure is not your fault. The flaws are not within you, but in your approach to change. And this is true for nearly everyone. We think we know how to change behavior, but we actually don't. At Stanford's Behavior Design Lab, which Fogg founded, he's been observing human behavior for the last decade. Through his psychological research with more than 40,000 people, he's developed a system for making desired behavioral changes. In his New York Times bestseller, Tiny Habits, Fogg explains how human behavior works and breaks down his proven behavior design system for habit building. You've probably heard the phrase, go big or go home, before, but according to Fogg, the secret to changing behavior is actually starting small, tiny, in fact. And Fogg explains several reasons why his Tiny Habits method is so effective. Tiny is fast. Making changes in your behavior can feel daunting, especially when you're short on time. But if you start with something that takes a minute or less, then you can more easily make that new behavior part of your routine and lock it in. Tiny can start now. With Tiny Habits, there's no need to delay or stress about how you'll adopt a behavior into your life. Fogg's method meets you where you are, no matter what your circumstances are. No waiting or procrastination necessary. Tiny is safe. By starting small, there's virtually no risk, whether you fail or succeed at what you set out to do. If you bite off more than you can chew, you set yourself up for failure. But by starting small, the pressure is off. Tiny can grow big. Fogg has found that the only consistent and sustainable way to make big changes is to start small. Small actions may feel insignificant at first, but they build momentum and progress over time. Tiny doesn't rely on motivation or willpower. We often think that we can change our behavior simply because we want to, but this isn't true. Motivation is part of the equation, but it's often unreliable. By making your new behavior small, you don't need to rely upon it to change. Fogg has seen countless people change their lives in incredible ways using his proven Tiny Habits method, which is part of his behavior design framework. In the following chapters, you'll take a deeper look into the psychology of human behavior and how to change it. And you'll explore Fogg's 7-step process for successfully designing new behaviors that stick and grow into larger lifestyle changes. Soon enough, you'll be building new habits, disrupting bad ones, and working towards transformation you never thought was possible. Chapter 2. The elements of behavior. If we want to change our behavior, we first need to understand how it works. Luckily, Fogg has been studying the psychology of human behavior for decades. His area of expertise is called behavior design. Behavior design is his comprehensive system for thinking clearly about human behavior and for designing simple ways to transform your life. Behavior can sometimes feel mysterious or unintuitive. But according to Fogg, every behavior can actually be broken down into 3 elements. He calls this the Fogg Behavior Model, which lies at the heart of behavior design. The Fogg Behavior Model is behavior equals motivation, ability, prompt, B equals map. Motivation is our desire to do a behavior, and it's highly variable. We're only human. Sometimes we want to do behaviors, and sometimes we don't. Most of us are highly motivated to use our phones, but less motivated to clean our bathrooms. Ability is our capacity to perform a behavior, how easy or difficult it is. It's generally more constant than motivation, but also fluctuates. For most of us, using our phone takes little effort, whereas cleaning the bathroom takes more time, energy, and skill. Prompts are what cue us to perform a behavior. These are the little reminders, obvious or subtle, that push us to do something. Your phone is constantly prompting you to use it, with notifications, text messages, and phone calls. But the prompts to clean your bathroom are less reliable. Maybe you notice how dirty the mirror is. Maybe your roommate reminds you that it's your turn. According to Fogg, these three elements must converge at the same time for a behavior to happen. And this B equals MAP model is universal. All behaviors can be broken down this way. Now, you may be wondering, why do some behaviors happen and some don't? This question has to do with what Fogg calls the action line, which is a key part of his model. Fogg illustrates his behavior model using a graph, with motivation on the y-axis and ability on the x-axis. Like components, motivation and ability determine where a behavior falls on the graph when prompted. For example, here are the behaviors: using your phone and cleaning the bathroom, plotted on the model. However, notice the curved action line. This static line is built into the model and ultimately determines whether a behavior happens or whether it doesn't. If a behavior falls above the action line, without fail it will happen when prompted. Using your phone has high motivation and high ability, so it falls above the action line. When your phone lights up with a notification, you pick it up. However, behaviors that fall below the action line feel extremely difficult, even impossible. Maybe cleaning your bathroom feels too annoying or time-consuming. Maybe it disgusts you. For whatever reason, this behavior falls below the action line, so it doesn't happen. The relationship between motivation and ability is fluid. Together, they determine whether a behavior falls above or below the action line when prompted. According to Fogg, in order to succeed in changing our behavior, we need to evaluate and modulate these three elements. If we can do this, then we can dissect habits we want to change and design new ones to replace them. In the next chapter, we'll begin with the first 3 steps of Fogg's behavior design process, which begins with outsmarting motivation. Chapter 3. Motivation and selecting behaviors. Tiny habits. Now that we have an understanding of how behavior works, we're ready to begin Fogg's behavior design process. The first 3 steps focus on selecting behaviors to outsmart motivation, which is notoriously unreliable. Most of us overestimate the importance of motivation in the behavior equation. We think that if we want something badly enough, if we have enough willpower, we'll accomplish our goal. But according to Fogg, this is a fallacy. Motivation alone is rarely enough to meaningfully change behavior. To use motivation to your benefit, Fogg recommends deciding on a clear aspiration. For Fogg, an aspiration is an overarching desire in the abstract. An aspiration looks towards a result in the future. It's something to strive towards. To clarify your aspiration, ask yourself, what do I want? What is my dream? What do I want to achieve? Really consider these questions and then write down your answer. You might initially think that you want to be more mindful, but upon further reflection, you actually want to reduce stress in your life. It's important to be precise and honest with yourself. As a scientist, Fogg encourages trial and error to find the aspiration that feels right for you. Once you've clarified your aspiration, the next step is brainstorming behaviors that would help serve that aspiration. At this exploratory step, don't make any judgments or decisions. Just try to generate as many specific behaviors as possible. Fogg calls this the swarm of behaviors. In our example about reducing stress, you might brainstorm, play with my dog, take regular naps, or do yoga every morning. You can even enlist help from other people during this step for a fresh perspective. The more behaviors in your swarm, the better. For this next step, evaluate your swarm of behaviors and decide how each will work for you and your aspiration. In order to do this, first consider the impact of each behavior. Ask yourself, how impactful will this behavior be at helping me reach my aspiration? Then, get practical. For each behavior, ask yourself, can I get myself to do this? This question gets at not just ability, but, more importantly, motivation. You might think that taking regular naps would be a high-impact behavior for reducing stress in your life. But when considering practicality, you realize napping doesn't come naturally to you, so it's actually not a behavior you could get yourself to do. Behavior matching gets at the crux of Fogg's philosophy about human behavior: help people do what they already want to do. During this stage, if you match with behaviors you actually will do, success is all but certain. After you've finished the selecting stage with these 3 steps, the next steps are about designing the new behaviors you've selected. We'll explore this in the next chapter. Chapter 4. Designing habits, starting tiny. Once you've selected the behavior you want to adopt, you're ready to begin designing your habit, which Fogg breaks down into 2 specific steps. In this chapter, we'll focus on the first one. Step 4. Start tiny. As we've mentioned, the secret to Fogg's method is starting tiny, which can be surprisingly powerful. Let's think again about the behavior model, specifically the action line. Remember, in order for a behavior to happen, it needs to fall above this line. Since motivation wavers, how can we make sure our behavior falls above the action threshold? Targetability. Make it easy to do. The level of easy that Fogg means is somewhat radical. In order to adopt a new behavior, you need to make it as easy and simple as possible. As Fogg writes, simplicity changes behavior. For example, Fogg himself struggled with his dental hygiene. No matter what he tried, he just couldn't bring himself to floss regularly. So he asked himself, how can I make flossing easier to do? His answer was simple. After he brushed his teeth, he would floss just one tooth. That's all. It seems sort of silly at first, but this is exactly what Fogg did. To succeed, he only needed to floss one tooth. After about 2 weeks, Fogg was flossing all of his teeth twice a day. By making a behavior tiny, you minimize the chance that you won't do it. And over time, your tiny habit will grow into a larger one. The question Fogg asked himself in the dentist chair is an important one. How can I make this behavior easier to do? However, it's also useful to think about ability from the opposite angle. What is making this behavior hard to do? Fogg has thought a lot about this question. To answer it, he's developed a series of sub-questions called the ability chain. The ability chain is only as strong as its weakest link. By answering these questions, we laser in on what exactly is going to make a behavior hard for us to do. Let's take another look at Fogg's flossing example. Flossing takes a few seconds, time. It's inexpensive, money. It's something he already knew how to do, mental effort, and it fit nicely into his life, routine. These all formed strong links in the chain, but for Fogg, the physical effort factor was what he found so challenging. It turns out that Fogg's teeth are very close together, which makes flossing difficult. Whenever he tried, his floss would get stuck or shredded between his teeth. This small inconvenience was enough to derail his desired flossing behavior, despite the other encouraging factors. The ability chain was breaking. Once Fogg realized this, he started sampling different flosses until he found one that slid easily between his teeth. And just like that, he was able to cultivate a flossing habit by starting with just one tooth and using thinner floss. By asking these specific questions about ability, you'll be able to systematically observe and diagnose what is stopping you from doing a behavior. And then you'll be able to troubleshoot and problem solve in a systematic way. Once you've made your behavior tiny, you're ready for the next step, designing the right prompt, which will be our focus in the next chapter. Chapter 5. Designing habits, prompts, and anchors. After you've made your behavior tiny, you're ready to focus on prompts, the final element of Fogg's behavior model. As we've learned, a prompt is something that triggers or reminds us to do a behavior. A prompt reaches us, and we act accordingly. Prompts are everywhere. They are the invisible drivers of our lives, Fogg writes. And no behavior happens without a prompt. It doesn't matter how high your motivation or ability level is for a behavior. Without an effective prompt, it won't happen. Fogg knows the power of prompts, which brings us to our next step in the behavior design process. Step 5. Find a good prompt. Designing good prompts is a skill that takes practice, but it's absolutely essential for building new habits. Fogg identifies 3 types of prompts: person, context, and action. Person prompts come from inside of you, like your bladder telling you to use the bathroom or remembering to call your mom on her birthday. Unless your survival is dependent upon a behavior, person prompts, like human memory, are notoriously unreliable. The second is the context prompt, which is anything in your environment that cues a behavior, like sticky notes, an app notification, or a coworker inviting you to a meeting. Context prompts are most effective for one-time actions. For daily habits, they can be stressful and ineffective. This is because in our modern world, we're often inundated with a flood of context prompts that are out of our control. The third type of prompt is Fogg's favorite for building tiny habits, action prompts. An action prompt, or anchor, is a behavior you already do that you can attach a new behavior to. The formula for an action prompt is after I anchor, I will, new habit. Action prompts are effective because they're natural and reliable. You already have an entire ecosystem of routines humming along nicely. You just have to tap into it, Fogg writes. How do you find a good anchor? First, identify some behaviors that you do in your life with regularity. Some examples include brushing your teeth, making your bed, pouring some coffee, or putting your head on your pillow. Make sure it's unique to you and your routine. After brainstorming, consider location and frequency. Ideally, these are a match between your anchor and your new habit. If your new habit is wiping down the kitchen counter, don't pair it with something like brushing your teeth, which is in the bathroom. A better action prompt here would be putting dirty dishes in the dishwasher. After you do this, wipe down the counter. Fogg encourages experimentation here. Try out an anchor and see how it feels. If it doesn't feel right, make adjustments until it does. In the final chapter, we'll turn towards the final 2 steps of behavior design, which focus on implementation. Chapter 6. Implementing your habits. The first 5 steps of behavior design are about creating your roadmap, designing your plan for your new habit. Next, it's about implementation. Step 6. Celebrate successes. This step might seem surprising, but through his research, Fogg has discovered that the most effective way to build lasting change is by tapping into our emotions. Our brains have built-in reward circuitry, and we're more likely to do something repeatedly if it makes us feel good. Take a moment to think about habits you already have, like using social media, eating dessert, or going on a morning run. It might seem obvious, but you do these behaviors because they make you feel happy, accomplished, or prepared. They create positive emotions within you. Knowing this information, Fogg has developed a way to use it to our advantage when trying to change our behaviors as a way to hack our brain's reward system. He calls it celebrating, and it's extremely simple. After you do your new behavior, immediately do something to make you feel positive emotions. The timing is important here because in order for your brain to encode this positive connection, the celebration needs to come immediately after the behavior. Celebrating can take many different forms. The point is that it's something that makes you specifically feel good inside. It might take some experimentation to find something that feels authentic to you. In Fogg's research, he's found that most of us are pretty great at telling ourselves we've done a bad job but struggle with praise. When Fogg was trying to adopt his new flossing habit, one particularly difficult day he looked in the mirror, smiled, and said, "Victory." And immediately, something changed within him. He felt optimistic, more calm, and even energized. And he sought this feeling again. The next day he tried it again after flossing, and the same thing happened. Victory. Celebrations can be big or small, vocal or silent, physical or internal. What matters is that they feel good for you. Once you find a celebration that works for you and begin to implement it, you'll be shocked at how easy it can be to quickly change behavior and build habit. Fogg refers to celebrating as habit fertilizer because it's the surest method for growing our tiny habits into big lifestyle changes. If you're able to celebrate tiny successes, over time you'll build up confidence and feel more positive in all aspects of your life as they transform before your eyes. This brings us to Fogg's final step of behavior design. Step 7. Troubleshoot, iterate, and expand. Behavior design is a scientific method. It requires experimentation and trial and error. The steps we've outlined also serve as a diagnostic checklist. If any of them aren't working for you, Fogg encourages redesign. That's the beauty of his system. There's no guesswork. It's clear and procedural. Changing our habits doesn't have to be difficult or elusive. If we know the right method, it can be simple, even fun. If you stick with Fogg's method, over time you'll be shocked by how much change you've implemented into your life. The main ideas, Chapter 6. To quickly change behavior, make sure to celebrate your successes, Step 6. Celebrating is any small gesture that creates positive feelings within you. To build habits, Fogg recommends troubleshooting, iterating, and expanding, Step 7.